What up? What up? What up? It's your boy James, aka Ralph's favorite. Now I know you're thinking to yourself, James, why am I not watching the video? Chill. We're gonna get to the video. But before we do that, I want to say on behalf of TBD, we appreciate you for taking the time out to watch this video. And we appreciate you for listening to the podcast. More importantly, we just appreciate you taking the time to be with us, because you could be anywhere in the world, but you are here with us today. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to first like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not, and then hit that notification bell. So that way you're notified when we drop a new video. And remember, it's all TBD. Now let's go ahead and get back to that video.
Well, this is the political perspective. If you ain't political, then you don't have a perspective.
Reggie, what you got for us on this political perspective this week?
And if you lived in the city of Philadelphia, this past week, you better have had a political perspective, because the choices that we make in terms of our leaders affect us in many ways. And we had the city workers strike that ended this week, and the negotiations that the union received were, for the most part, underwhelming. They did not really get much of what they were asking for, and in terms of their new contract. They didn't get any concessions on increases, just really normal 3% increases that if you work in most industries, that's pretty standard. 3% increases. They were looking for some residency. There's restrictions on residency for those types of city workers only being able to live within the city. And they wanted to get those regulations kind of relaxed a little bit, so they can kind of even move to suburbs and outskirts of Philadelphia. That was shot down. So it really wasn't really a win for the union. It didn't, like I said, it didn't appear that they got really any of the concessions that they wanted. And I hope that, for their sake, I hope that this gives them a better kind of a strategy moving forward. If they ever decide to strike again, they're going to have to plan this out a little better, where their employees can actually withstand a strike. I think a week, and unfortunately, this particular bargaining group is one of the lowest paid bargaining groups in the city. So when you're not making high wages, you don't really have the ability to miss weeks and weeks of work. But unfortunately, that is probably the only way that they're ever gonna be able to have the negotiating power that they desperately need, is the city having to fill this for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I think after one week, I think the residents of the city were totally fed up. And if this would have lingered on, I think we might have talked about this. If this would have lingered on, I think that would have kind of forced the city to maybe even cave in. But after a week, they really didn't have the stomach to continue with the with the strike. So just shout out to them for coming to an agreement and getting the city back to what we're used to.
I just want your opinion. So I saw the video of the District Council 33 Union President Greg Bull, where they caught him on, they interviewed him after the deal was reached. It was about 4 a.m.
Any info, Mr. Bowler, we're working on it. I spoke with the attorney outside, and he told me that a deal has been reached. Can you confirm?
Yes, there's a deal been reached, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, tell us why, unfortunately. Why you use that word?
Because I'm not happy or satisfied with the outcome of things.
And he was obviously not happy with how things went. And he seemed, from my perspective, just based on how he talked and his body language in the video, it was not his call. It was not his call to agree to the terms that they agreed to. I thought they were in it for a longer fight based on the things that they were asking for. And that, I thought they would I thought they would fold a little sooner if they weren't locked in. The union, the Greg Woolwer and the union, I thought they would crumble if they weren't locked in, but they seem to be pretty locked in. And I didn't like the tone of the what Sherelle Parker had said a few days prior to, basically, hey, this is a good deal, take the money, and it was basically like, this is what we got for you. And I just thought they were in for a longer fight, and I just really wonder what happened, because he was not happy. What I know, times are hard. You can't go too many days without receiving a check, and each day that passes, you go, okay, my next check is not going to be. It's going to be 5 days short now. Like, you can't. That's a reality that a lot of people can't just accept. I just wonder what would happen, and what I didn't see his statement. He did mention that he was putting out a statement when they interviewed him at 4 a.m. Did you see the statement by chance?
Nah, I didn't. I didn't see the statement. But I did read prior to the negotiation, prior to the last negotiation, and then directly after. That he was just very, very seemed disheartened by the decision to to accept the deal. And I think that I think that it's gonna always be difficult to strike. It's gonna always be difficult, and I think that if this is not planned 6 months, a year in advance, then you're kind of just inconveniencing people for the sake of inconveniencing.
Right.
Because after a week, I don't think that will put enough pressure on the city to really accept your demands. And when you talk about just work stoppages and things of that nature, and in order for you to feel the effects, it has to be for weeks.
Yeah.
And if the bargaining group, and I don't know this for sure, I don't know that I don't know that process of accepting the contract. I don't know if they have an executive board, or they send it to the 7,000 workers. I don't know exactly how they come up with that decision, or is it just the union leadership that votes on it or accepts it? But 1 week didn't seem like that would be enough. And that was all that they had. That's very kind of disheartening. And I actually I saw a post. There's another union that is that's coming up on their contract is coming up. I think it's 47C, and they already said that because of this, they don't really have much bargaining power at all. Because this is the group that could have really affected how unions were able to operate within the city, because it's something that you can tangibly see, garbage on the streets. So I mean, I feel sorry for those folks. Unfortunately, that is city budgets in broke cities, and
Reggie,
we are a broke city.
couple quick questions for you about this. Do you think that they folded too soon?
I mean, I think that if you were going to fold in 1 week, you might as well not even go on strike. A week wasn't enough to compel the city to cave, and it would have had, the city would have had to have had residents in the streets like, this shit got to fucking end, right? And if you didn't have that, then people was going to just make it work. That's how they was, And after a week, it's inconvenience, but it can be managed. If this would have been 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, people would have been in the streets. And that's the only way you're really going to get something like this done, is the people would have to have demanded it. The mayor was going to just sit on her hands until she was forced to, right?
So a couple more questions before, and I didn't mean to cut the political perspective in half, like in a sense, but I was thinking about this as you were talking about it. Do you feel like the mayor pretty much threatened their jobs is what made them cave sooner?
I don't believe so. I mean, I just think that it's almost like what we used to say, house always wins. Like,
Yeah.
So it's a situation where the city had the advantage of waiting it out until actual real pressure was put on the city from the citizens in the city. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so the mayor didn't really have pressure yet. She had some discomfort, but it wasn't pressure.
Were
You
they
know,
still
and
being paid during the strike?
no, they have a strike fund
Okay.
that they were paying people out of the strike fund. But you can just
Not up
imagine,
for 100% though, probably, right?
no, absolutely not. Mm-mm.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, they would have had to have been, like I said, you'd have had to have 6 months, a year to plan this,
Yeah.
in anticipation that you were going to strike.
That's what he sounded
And
like in the video. Like he been telling these people, yo, save some money because we got to lock in.
You make a great
That's how
point.
he
You're right.
sounded. He
Yep.
sounded like, I told y'all to save money because we're going to lock in. And this is just me throwing shit at the wall. But that's really what he sounded like. I just read it. He made a statement that said, about the 3% increase, the same people that were poor yesterday are poor today. Like he just sounded really dejected
yeah,
about.
but you got to look at it like this. And this was something that was pointed out to me. The median income for that bargaining group is $47,000. Now, I'm not counting nobody's pockets,
But you
but
know that
$47,000 is not enough, to sustain
in
one
today's
individual.
Yeah.
One individual, let alone a family of two or three. It's just not logical. So even that message of save at 47,000,
Pretty hard to do.
what is your ability to save?
So my
It's
last
gonna be
question for
very,
you.
very difficult. Yes.
Last question for you, Reggie. How did you feel about all the entrepreneurs, we'll call them, in the city that were called to action or took it upon themselves to be trash removal? Because I saw a lot of people that were trash men, and not just trash men. Other people, that's on that side was like, yo, that's corny as shit that y'all doing that.
I did feel like it wasn't a bit corny. I will say that. I did feel like it was a bit corny. If you were a good citizen, and not to say that you needed to do trash pickups for a whole block, but if you were gonna, pick up trash for the elderly, right?
Right.
Or people who had no ability to take their trash somewhere, or something of that nature. But if you was trying to make a buck, that's I think that's kind of foul to me. You was just trying to make a buck off of a situation that was not the common citizen's problem. It's not our fault. We pay our taxes, so our trash should be picked up. And now you want me to now pay you to pick up my my trash? It's a bit trash to me. Know what I mean? So like if you was going and some elderly people, some people who who needed that service, and you were going to offer it for free, that would have been cool. But if you're gonna try to make a buck, nah.
The city.
Yeah, I ain't with that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I ain't with that. Yeah, I ain't with that. But switching over to some national politics, Donald Trump is doing his tariff rampage again. He sent 22 letters to different countries, pretty much threatening them with exorbitant amounts of tariff taxes or whatever. But one particular country that's very interesting that he sent the letter to is Brazil. So most of Donald Trump's kind of complaints about the tariffs is this kind of philosophy that we are operating with a budget deficit with all these other countries, meaning that we export more than we import, and there's a large monetary difference in that, and
Yeah.
these tariffs are supposed to kind of lessen that gap.
Right. Level it
Now,
out.
Brazil is a country that we have a budget surplus with Brazil. So we export more than we import from Brazil. However, Trump sent a letter to the Brazilian government threatening 50% tariff. I just think the numbers is so ridiculous to me, but 50% tariff on all Brazilian products, and not because we're not getting a fair trade deal, but because Trump believes that that Brazil is prosecuting their former president in a harsh way, we'll just say. So the former president of Brazil during 2022, when he lost the presidential race, is accused of an attempted coup of the country to remain in power. And Trump says he's going to levy these 50% tariffs on Brazil unless they drop this case against the former Brazilian president, which, of course, the former Brazilian president is a fan of Trump. Trump says, so Trump says to a country, to a sovereign country, if you don't stop your legal proceedings against one of your citizens, if you don't stop this, we're gonna tack on 50% tariff, which kind of makes you just kind of realize just how ridiculous and the types of this, not even bully, but just ridiculous demands that Donald Trump believed that he can levy on country. And Brazil, to their credit, said, we ain't, if you give us a 50% tariff, we're gonna hike up 50% tariffs on y'all. That we're not going to stop our legal proceedings because you threaten us with the tariff. So this is the first country of record to actually buck back at Trump and actually say that they're gonna give the same tariffs also. So there's a stalemate there. We'll have to wait and see what Trump's response is. His threatening of countries seems to have worked, but this is just very kind of tacky for him to, really be telling them what to do within their country, within their legal proceedings. That's just kind of crazy. But when it has to do with a person attempting to form a coup of the government, that seems to be pretty on point with things that Trump might be that might be in support of. Another country that Trump met with this week was Liberia. And he had a meeting with Liberia and having a conversation with President of Liberia. And Trump makes a statement that most Black people would take offense to. And it's an old trope of Black people. And what he said was, you speak English very well. Where did you learn how to speak English that well?
Well, thank you. It's such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
And what's more ridiculous about that is English is Liberia's official language. They were an English colony and an American colony. So learn English in school because we speak English. And the fact that Trump would be impressed that a country that English is their first language knows how to speak English lets you know what his expectations are of Black people, of African countries in general. And I will say this: the African countries have a lot of grace, and I know you can't just jump up and slap the president of the United States or anything like that, but it's not the first time that Trump has been saying some outlandish stuff to these African heads of states face. The other one, South Africa's president with the white farmers being the genocide, and he's like, what are you talking about, right? And they've had to maintain their professionalism, just because the United States is who the United States is. But it's kind of like this a ridiculous, maybe even racist. If we were here, we would look at that and we would say, that's a pretty racist, if not just prejudice statement to make towards a Black person. And he did this on camera. Lets you know the type of thing that Trump does and has floating around in his head. A couple of other things, the FEMA response in Texas, prayers up to everybody that's being affected with the floods in Texas. If you've seen any of the footage, it almost looks like hurricanes hit these areas as opposed to flood waters. All the the young children that were in the camp, that drowned. Just a horrible, kind of terrible situation. However, Trump and his administration has already, cut funding to FEMA and has threatened, funding to FEMA, but it's more so they feel like they can control the how the money is distributed. So all those conversations and the different departments who report to FEMA that had layoffs, that people that took early retirement, certain positions were not posted, did not have anybody working these positions. And, someone always said that those open positions did not contribute to it not being proper warning and things of that nature. But it's something that we'll never know, and it's something that is, when you look at the disasters that have been happening in the country this past year, and you correlate that with some of these openings that the administration has created, and you look at previous administrations that these people were in these posts and these actions didn't happen. So, I mean, nobody can control Mother Nature, but when you do cut programs, you do cut people, there are actual, there can actually be ramifications of that. So
you can't control Mother Nature, but you can absolutely control the ability to respond to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The last thing I want to bring up is just another kind of funny, not really funny, but Trump kind of makes everything funny, right? So, as you know, there's a war, Ukraine, Russia. Russia just unleashed, I think, 7,000 drones or whatever. We're in drone warfare now. And these drones can cause all kinds of damage, and no damage to your soldiers because everything is remote. However, Trump was asked a question about funding for Ukraine, and apparently last week we stopped sending Ukraine weapons, and Trump was asked about this, and in the Trumpian way, he had no idea that we stopped sending weapons to Ukraine, and he was asked about this multiple times, and in each answer, he was unaware that we would stop sending weapons to Ukraine, and he actually said if we did stop sending weapons to Ukraine, he would know, but he doesn't know, and I think it really kind of speaks to the type of person we have as president, and the type of person that I mean is Trump on his best day is a C- person. And you can only be a C- person and be president of the United States if you're white. And that is pretty accurate. He's a C- person, but the effects of having a C- person as the most powerful person in the world can have drastic effects. So Trump not even knowing what we're doing with our military, not even knowing what we're doing with our funding. Like, you have someone that is in charge of the country that absolutely doesn't know what's going on. I know I said that was the last thing, but the very last thing is the Epstein files. Trump and his administration have teased and even spoke on releasing the Epstein file. They've been talking about this for years. And they even said that they had in possession of the Epstein files. And his own base is kind of like killing him and his his administration for their lack of transparency with these Epstein files. And I think James, kind of alluded to this with the Diddy trial, that who's on these this air quote client list, or what's floating out there that can connect certain people. And we've all seen the videos of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein, with him partying with Epstein, making comments about women and things of that nature, saying that this Epstein guy, he's a great guy, it's my friend,
and he was on the manifest, right?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the questions, and this is where conspiracy theories, when they have legs, or they don't have legs, you don't know where it's going to go. And MAGA, it is kind of interesting because MAGA has, in their mind, they felt like these Epstein files are going to have all of these Democrats in it. And the whole thing about Epstein started with Bill Clinton, of all people, right? It started with Bill Clinton. And, there was accusations that Bill Clinton was floating around with Epstein. And, through whatever kind of, say what, I guess Hillary and Bill. But, so this all started with this attempt to kind of demonize Bill Clinton and to kind of show connection between Epstein and Bill Clinton. However, we all see that these connections can go anywhere. So that was the original idea, is that it's going to be Bill Clinton, it's going to be all of these Democrats. We're going to be able to,
this list.
Absolutely. But now that Trump it's documented that Trump has had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but also Elon Musk has repeated it multiple times that Trump is in the Epstein files. And now they're not releasing anything. So it makes you wonder what is in these files that they don't want to be leaked. Who's on these files. And this is what I have to believe. This is what I have to believe. If it was Democrats in the Epstein files, it's leaked.
We have them.
It's out. It's out. No questions asked. It's out. And that leads me to believe that it's probably mostly Republicans in that file.
And very influential people in the world, right? Republicans, of course.
Absolutely.
What do you think about them ruling his death a suicide and closing and shutting the case?
I mean, I think that another thing that's interesting is this happened in 2019 while Trump was in office. So we're talking about his Department of Justice, we're talking about his FBI, his CIA. And from the reports, they have camera footage, I think 12 hours in front of his cell, but it was 1 hour or something that's missing. It's kind of sketchy.
They make sure they have it now? That they're going to release that?
I mean, they keep saying they're going to release everything, but it's fake hour. But once again, this happened on Trump's watch.
Right.
This happened while Trump was in office, his Department of Justice, his FBI. So it makes you wonder what's really going on.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that we've seen all these conspiracy theory movies and movies where they show that there are people trained to make it look like a suicide or to make it look like a heart attack, things like that. So you already know. I'm CO conspiracy.
No doubt.
Thank you for watching this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.